What's up, everybody? Welcome back to yet another episode of The Muster Room. Thanks for being here. We appreciate you. I appreciate you. Joe appreciates you. And Rob appreciates you. And of course, Eric does as well. Unfortunately, Eric is not here with us yet again because this is The Muster Room on the road. We are here in Claremont, Florida, just outside of Orlando. We just saw some fireworks. I believe it was the Disney fireworks. Shout out to Disney.
The Muster Room After Dark.
The Muster Room After Dark. So it is currently, we're shooting this at almost, I think it's actually 11 o'clock at night here in Florida, 11:15. We just arrived. We're on our way down to Key Biscayne for our second annual Law Enforcement Officers Weekend down in beautiful Key Biscayne, right off of the coast of Miami. And we figured, you know what, let's do one more show. It was on 2 earlier today in Florence, South Carolina. We did one yesterday in Maryland, and we're making our way down the coast. And here we are with the infamous Rob Corbett of the NYPD, or I should say, retired from the NYPD, and quite a famous person from the NYPD. And we'll get into why you're famous. You've had some viral photos over the past few years. So most of our listeners are from the New York City area. A lot of them are NYPD. They certainly know your name. They know who you are. With that being said, I kind of just want to jump right into it. So again, we have our guest for the evening, Rob Corbett, retired lieutenant from the NYPD, 25 years on the job.
Yep.
Served with a bunch of different units, legal being the most recent before your retirement.
Yep.
And now you're down here starting all over again, and you're a psychopath for doing that. And we'll get into that towards the end of the show. But with no further ado, Rob, tell us a little bit about yourself and why you got into law enforcement to begin with.
Well, let me start by saying thanks for stopping by. I'm honored to have you guys in the new house. I started in the NYPD in 1997, April of 1997. I was a cop in the 2.0 and the 2.8, mostly the 2.8. Had a great time in the 2.8. Great guys I worked with there. Made sergeant, made lieutenant, finished up in April of 2022 after 25 years. Had a hell of a ride, a lot of fun, met a lot of great people, worked with a lot of real heroes. Around 2010, I went to the chief of department's office. Maybe it was 2011, 2010. I spent about 6 or 7 years there, and then spent the next 6 years, my last 6 years in legal. In 2009, I went to law school, graduated law school, Brooklyn Law. Passed the bar and got admitted to the bar in 2010 in New York. Started a little small side law practice doing things like wills and trusts and business law. And eventually went to legal, worked in a few places and doing a few different things in legal, like forfeiture cases, nuisance abatement cases, defended a couple of FOIL cases, went out and did a lot of the protests and the street stuff. And finished up in the police action litigation section where we helped defend lawsuits against the cops, which was difficult but rewarding to help cops in the department. You know, it was a great career. I had no complaints. I was a first responder on 9/11. Really no complaints except in the last couple of years.
Yeah. We're going to get into that. That's essentially what a lot of this podcast is going to be. It's been a hot burning topic over the past few years. It's been a topic that I said to you earlier, we've kind of been circling the drain with on many of the previous episodes. We speak about the defund the police movement. We've talked about the riots. We don't call them protests. Those were full-fledged riots in many cities across the U.S., and we never really got fully deep into the conversation because the guests that we've had, that wasn't just part of their spiel, right? For you, I mean, it really was, not just from a legal aspect, but as a cop in general, holding that line, right? And we'll again get into that in just a few minutes. But what I wanted to do is, before we even jump into that, aside from all this amazing police career that you had, you also are the president of a nonprofit that we from Law Enforcement Officers Weekend have been head over heels in love with. And I've said this on multiple podcasts. I said it on an episode that we shot earlier today. Brotherhood for the Fallen, NYC, by far one of our greatest partnerships that we've ever established with any other nonprofit out there. And we've worked with a lot. There's some really great organizations out there, but you guys were one of the first, and you stuck by our side since day one. And we truly appreciate it. So if you don't mind, I mean, I know you were the president of the organization up until your retirement. So if you could just give our listeners just a little spiel about what Brotherhood is and what they do.
Yeah, of course. Brotherhood for the Fallen was originally started by a group of Chicago cops in 2010. And they were the only chapter of Brotherhood for the Fallen until around 2015. Myself and a few other New York City cops met the president, Rick, in Chicago during the Ramos and Lou funerals in 2013, 14, late 13, early 14, I think it was. And he sort of mentioned the idea of spreading out and letting other chapters start up. And I got together with a few other guys, James and Tim and Kevin and a few other guys. And we started the second chapter of Brotherhood for the Fallen, was the NYPD chapter. Aurora, Colorado started right after us. And it was a really, I think it was a really great thing we were doing. To long story short, it's like a fraternal organization. Cops join, members of the NYPD join the chapter. And the Brotherhood pays the airfare, rental car, and hotel expense, and sends at least 2 cops in dress uniform to every combat line of duty funeral in the country. And they cover all those expenses to get the guys there. And they also, each chapter, there's 9 chapters now, each chapter gives a check to the family to help with their immediate needs, which I think in a lot of places outside of New York City, like what a lot of New York guys may not realize is, when you travel to a funeral, in a small part of the country, they are so floored by your presence there. It means a lot to the cops and that work out there and the families. And their benefits are not the same as in some of the bigger cities. And they really need that help. And it was an amazing feeling to deliver that help. And the chapter's in great hands now. Rob and Jason, I'm sure, are doing a great job. I've been so busy moving and stuff that I haven't been able to keep up.
How dare you?
But I know.
Yeah.
But the chapter's in great hands, and they're continuing on. They're having their first annual golf tournament coming up soon.
Yeah.
And I as well cherished our work with Elio Weekend when I was there, and I'm sure that'll continue. There's 9 chapters of Brotherhood for the Fallen now. It's Chicago, NYPD, Aurora, Colorado, Boston, Fort Worth, Dallas, Suffolk County, Arkansas, and South Carolina. And I have no idea if the future will bring a Florida chapter as a 10th chapter.
Well, you tell me. You might make it happen.
We could do it now.
There's plenty of guys down here, especially where here in Claremont.
Yeah, but I don't know if I have the energy anymore, but we'll see.
I have a feeling you do. I have a pretty big feeling you do. So again, a huge shout out to Brotherhood of the Fallen. And one of the reasons we bring it up, this was not planned. When we were traveling down from New York just 2 days ago, we were scrambling to find guests to come onto the podcast. And we reached out on Facebook, made a general post and said, hey, listen, we want to, hit up somewhere on I-95 between New York to Florida and do at least an interview or 2. And this gentleman by the name of Terry, who is the president of the South Carolina FOP, hit me up on LEO Only, which is one of the biggest, law enforcement Facebook groups out there.
Yep.
And said, there's a woman who I think might be interested in speaking with you. And her husband's anniversary death is the day prior, October 3rd. I said, okay, great. He didn't tell me the name yet. And then all of a sudden he goes, her name is Allison Caraway. I go, Caraway? I go, wait a second. And I go, she came to our event last year. And I tell him all about Law Enforcement Officers Weekend. He had not known about it at the time. He reaches out to Allison. Allison says, oh my God, they're coming down. Of course, I want to go see them. She shows up today. So this is now the 3rd interview we shot today. I don't know how this is going to air. Maybe we air this one specifically after Allison's.
The magic of editing. Who knows when the one is going to be.
Yeah. So we'll figure that part out. That's going to be up to Joe. But whether this airs before or after, probably after, Allison had just the greatest remarks about Brotherhood. She had told us the story that I guess when we were originally planning the original Key Biscayne event, I had reached out to you months in advance. I had said, listen, this is what we're doing, because you had told me you guys wanted to send families because you've done it to the Lake George event, and you wanted to send families now to Key Biscayne. She told me that she had been contacted by the Myrtle Beach chapter, which I guess was, but from you guys originally, I guess reached out to them.
Yeah.
I don't know how, but logistically it happened. And the greatest thing that she said that really stood out to us, and I think we all had we started tearing up in the room earlier this morning. She said the event was amazing, but the night or a few days after Terrence had been killed in line of duty, I guess it was the night before the funeral, 11 o'clock at night, she's standing in her own home, and there's cops from across South Carolina there outside. But in her home, there was a cop in full dress uniform from the NYPD, a cop in full dress uniform from, I believe she said, about 4 or 5 other departments. And she said they were all standing there together like they knew each other, and they just were standing there in full dress uniform. And she couldn't believe that these cops from across the country were in her room. And I said to Allison, I go, I bet you I know who they were. It was Brotherhood for the Fallen. She goes, that's exactly who it was.
Yeah.
And she said, out of everything else that was going on that night, at 11 o'clock at night in, the middle of South Carolina, I mean, no one else really goes to Florence for, really nothing, right? You have these guys who represent, and gals that represent some of the largest agencies in the country, actually in the world, standing in her hotel, in her room, just to show the appreciation and the support of the Thin Blue Line. And she said that really stood out to her. And I think there wasn't a dry eye in the room when she was talking about it.
Yeah. And if I could, for all the New York City cops watching or listening, right, you may know, you may not know, it is one of the most meaningful things you'll do in your time in law enforcement.
Yeah.
You should really consider joining the chapter and traveling. It's a feeling like no other. It's something you'll never forget. It's humbling, but it's also rewarding to really help. And
it's such a simple act that has such a profound impact on the families.
Yes. And one of the saddest things, maybe saddest is not the right word, but one of the most difficult things in my time with Brotherhood for the Fallen was it's a 36,000 member police department. And I think the most members we ever got in a year was around 900. We didn't have the same official department help or the level which we would have liked. But it's a big department and everything, and either guys don't get it or it was hard for us to reach out to the whole department. So it would really mean a lot to these families to see more guys, and obviously the more members Brotherhood has, the bigger the grant they can give at every funeral.
Yeah.
Right. So
a lot of guys and gals from our area of the country don't realize the support that's not there when you're not from a large, Northeast agency. I'm sure it's probably the same, of course, in maybe Tampa and Miami and Baltimore and, some places down in California. But for the most part, in the middle of America, they don't have units like we do that are designated specifically to the families of fallen officers or officers that are injured in the line of duty. And she was even telling us, like, the department, and it's no offense to them, but they didn't know what they were doing. They hadn't had a line of duty death since the 1980s. Even the hospital that was dealing with this, she was telling us how the doctor came and approached her and told her that her husband had just been killed. And she said it was just so cold. And again, there's no offense to that doctor. Again, they don't deal with that.
Yeah.
And we don't understand how good, I mean, if that's the way you want to call it, we have it in these large agencies where we have so much support and the money and the funding and the training behind it. So when people see other agencies, and there's something just really special about that NYPD patch. All of us in this room, we're all either active or retired NYPD cops. To us, it doesn't mean much, but to other places outside of the Northeast, that patch it means so much to people.
How does someone go about joining, one, if they're NYPD, and two, if we have a lot of listeners who are in the surrounding areas and different departments in Jersey and whatnot, do you accept, or does the organization accept other agencies that don't have a chapter yet, or how can they get involved too?
So for the NYPD guys, the best thing to do is go to brotherhoodnyc.org. That's the chapter's website, and you can join right there. You can pay by credit card or PayPal or whatever.
Can retirees join as well?
Right there. Retirees can join, but we don't send them to funerals.
Okay.
The department has a thing about retirees.
Yeah, but essentially they're still supporting the cause.
Yep. They still support the cause, come to events, et cetera, et cetera. For guys, every chapter is a little different. So for example, Suffolk County will let officers from other Suffolk County PDs, like, Southampton or East Hampton or whatever, those guys can join the Suffolk County chapter and they can travel. But if you're in Jersey or someplace that doesn't have a chapter, you could join the NYPD chapter as an associate member. The dues are less, but you won't be sent to a funeral. But I think, since I'm not there anymore, the Brotherhood is always interested in expanding. If you have a couple of interested guys that want to start, just for, example purposes, like the North Jersey chapter, I'm sure it could be done. So if there are interested guys listening out there, it's an amazingly rewarding experience. And, imagine for a minute, if not, just to make up round numbers, if 9 chapters went to every combat line of duty funeral and each chapter gave $2,000, right? Imagine if there were 30 chapters and each chapter gave $2,000 or 50 chapters and it could happen.
Yeah.
You just need guys that are willing to do it. I think one of the things is that in a lot of parts of America, they don't have a line of duty funeral for a very long time.
Right.
Right. And they don't really, you forget or, that institutional knowledge isn't there. The cops don't know or they don't get it yet. And then they have one and then they're like amazed when everyone comes.
Yeah.
So it's, it's different.
Right.
And in the big cities, unfortunately, it happens more often. So most of the places we have chapters are pretty big, Boston, Dallas, Chicago, New York, so we don't have any California chapters yet. No Florida yet. So, maybe we'll expand and that would be a great thing for families.
Yeah. Well, our season 1, this is season 2 now. Season 1, we had a little over 6,000, listeners. And that's actually extremely high for a first year podcast or first season podcast. It reached, C to C. So for all of you that are listening, and we know you're listening, and if you're in any other state outside of New York or what Rob just named, some of these other chapters, start up a chapter, get it going. Somebody take the bull by the horns, get it going, and let's help these families of fallen officers because it's extremely rewarding.
And if you're interested, probably the best thing to do is to reach out to the Chicago chapter. Rick Caballero is the president in Chicago, and he started the whole thing. And so there's a sort of a process to become a chapter. And he's the main guy. So you could reach out to them if anyone wants to reach out to me for help. Or
and Rob will be your lawyer on retainer, right? Pretty cheap, 10% discount for them. So that's great. Thank you so much for offering that. All right. So again, huge shout out to Brotherhood of the Fallen across the country, all the brotherhoods. Thank you guys for what you do. Let's jump right into why we're really here.
All right.
So again, we've been tickling this topic for an entire season now. We're finally here. We're upon it. The 2020-2021 Summer of Love it was called across the country, right? The riots that occurred because of the George Floyd incident. And there was just so much tension leading up to the George Floyd incident. Really, if you take it back even further, before there was the defund the police, there was the Occupy movement, and you were involved in that as well. So I want to start there, and then we'll do a little time warp into the defund the police movement and how you were fully involved in that. But you were a lieutenant during the Occupy Wall Street movement, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So there was a viral, and it still is a viral photo that goes around from time to time, and you happen to be the center of attention in that photo. And you could talk about it now that you're retired.
Yeah, it's just that was actually May Day, May 1st of I think 2011. It was at the tail end of the Occupy movement, and May 2nd, I woke up in the morning to go to work, and I was taking a shower, and my phone started going off like crazy. And I'm like, wow, who's bothering me at 7 o'clock in the morning or whatever, right? I get out of the shower, I look at the phone, and it's a cell phone picture of the newspaper. And I'm looking close, I'm going, why is somebody's, and then I'm like, oh, is that me? And so the day before, May 1st, if you don't know what May Day is, I don't remember the exact history, but it has something to do with the socialist workers movement that started in another country. And every May 1st on May Day, there's concern about Black Bloc protesting tactics and things like that. So that day, a particular march had started on around Houston Street somewhere in a park, or maybe it was Delancey Street. I worked in chief of department's office at the time. Chief Espo was the chief of department. And he liked to have his supervisors go out and cover. So like one sergeant or lieutenant and a cop might have covered like, the Zuccotti Park area. And I actually had, I want to say it might have been Times Square. But there was nothing going on because there were lots of different marches planned. There was nothing happening, and they were calling for help on this one march. The march started out, like I said, he did Delancey or Houston Street, and right from the beginning of this gathering, they started throwing batteries at the cops and stuff like that, and they took off into the street, and the cops were chasing them north, and we were monitoring it on the radio for a little while, and we were covering our area, but they needed some help. So we headed downtown, and they were approaching Washington Square Park. And when they were a couple of blocks south, we were just going to go try to help. But I got to, I forget the name of the street, maybe Waverly Place or something. There was a lieutenant in uniform trying to arrest somebody. And he was kind of by himself because there was a line of scooter cops and nobody else. The scooter cops don't really get off the scooters. They kind of can't. Mm-hmm. So this lieutenant's trying to arrest somebody, and like 5 or 6 other Black Bloc style protesters were trying to break that guy free. So I got out of the car and I ran over to help this other lieutenant, and I had my PR-24 in my hand.
What exactly is the PR-24?
The PR-24 is the nightstick that we used to be issued that has the side handle. It's also called a side handle baton. It's a black, straight baton with a handle coming off the side. So I was running over to help this other lieutenant, and I just kind of wanted to like make a lot of noise. And I had my stick in my hand, and I was like, I thought, maybe these guys would run away. But instead, one guy grabbed my stick and tried to take it. So I grabbed it with the other hand. I put this hand on the handle, and I pulled it back to get it. And he was kind of squared off with me. And when I pulled the stick away, I was like, in my head, I'm going, well, I'm back here now. So I swung it at him, and there was an Associated Press reporter taking pictures, and this picture was in like every newspaper the next day.
Yeah.
So I never really get to live that down.
I saw that photo of you, getting passed around in 2014 when I first got on the job, when, some of the riots started to first start occurring with the Freddie Gray trial that was going on the year prior, and Michael Brown incident. So this photo that was taken, 4 or 5 years earlier starts to resurface again. And it tends to, that's what viral photos, but so you're a lawyer, right? So you understand the legality of different things that go on, but this could happen to anybody, especially nowadays, right? And especially, social media was a monster back then. It's not what it is now, though. I mean, social media now is everyday life. Back in 2011, Facebook was still king. It was actually still kind of rising through the ranks. When a photo goes viral like that, how do you, as a human being with a family, how do you deal with something like that? Because I'm assuming you must have been getting phone calls, not just from friends and family. Or were you receiving death threats?
No, at that point, most people didn't really know. It was only people who knew me knew it was me, mm-hmm. And stuff like that. And so they would, message me or whatever, but it wasn't viral in a public sense.
Okay, well, that's good.
Yeah, and it has never gone viral in a public sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
People tag me on Facebook all the time with it, but they're my friends,
right.
People that know me, or I get texts all the time like, oh, they're still showing this in training, mm-hmm. Somewhere. Someone will be in a course, right. Whatever. And they'll send me a snap of like a PowerPoint, or something like that.
Yeah.
And, nobody bothered me about it, back then. But the next photo,
we're going to get into that. Yeah.
Stuff, yeah.
In this entire house, you have tons of mementos. Do you have that photo framed anywhere?
Yeah, I do.
Oh, you do?
Yeah, but I haven't put it up on the wall.
Okay.
Nothing's up yet.
Yeah.
Really.
I saw that. I could be wrong, but Did somebody get you a retirement cake with that on the cake?
Was that picture on it?
I thought it was, or maybe it was photoshopped on a cake or something as a joke.
Well, there was, they make those boards.
Yeah.
Like when you retire.
Yeah.
So there was like a collage board.
Okay. Maybe that's what I saw.
It was in there.
I could have swore I saw it on a cake. It could have been like Photoshop. Maybe somebody in one of the groups put it as a joke. So you kind of led into it. That was your first, I guess, taste of going viral, right? Now that the next photo really, really went viral. Now we're gonna time warp a few years later. As we all know, the sentiment towards police starts getting worse and worse, moving from 2014 up to the summer of 2020. The George Floyd incident occurs. I don't have to go over the George Floyd incident. Everybody knows across the country, whether you're law enforcement or not, what happened with the George Floyd incident. I think we could all sit here and say it was, it's a terrible incident. Should never have happened to begin with. But nonetheless, it did. And now us being in law enforcement, we have to now deal with the repercussions. So, I mean, it was almost instantaneously because that video goes viral. I mean, crazy quick. The next day, the riots already start.
I was working the night it first started in Brooklyn North. I was about to leave, and I had a couple other co-workers come in, and they're about to go out to the 8-8 for a demonstration. I'm like, hey guys, do you want me to stay for this? Like, nah, this isn't going to be that bad. Then I get home that night, and I look on my phone. I see, oh my God, they're firebombing cars.
Yeah, I don't think any of us knew exactly how bad it was going to get.
Went in Saturday morning and didn't go home for like 3 weeks.
Yeah.
It was an amazing difference. I mean, like I said earlier, I came on in 1997 and we had protests. We had the RNC was a major event, and we had all kinds of protests all the time. But people tended to always, even if they shouted obscenities at you and they hated the police, but they didn't really fight us. They didn't assault us. They didn't throw things at us. And that was actually something I have a lot of English police friends. And that was something that we always had interesting conversations about, because they were used to like Molotov cocktails. Mm-hmm. Like, they had some real issues over there, and their riot guys were trained much different.
Yeah.
And I would explain how they don't really like attack us, and that really changed. I mean, even in the Occupy days, we would have our little scrums here and there with people who just really wanted to fight or whatever else, but there weren't that many. And there were certainly no Molotov cocktails or, bricks being thrown at us or anything like that.
What do you think? What was the change? Why did it go from just being essentially a quote unquote peaceful protest in maybe the early 2000s or late mid 2000s to now going to extremely violent?
I think one of the big factors that we have to talk about too, COVID. People were locked up in their houses for, at this point, months, half a year at this point. And there was a lot of pent up frustration. And I think this was the spark that ignited everything.
Yeah, I think it was a combination of things. And that's definitely one of them. Mm-hmm. Remember, the police are the most visible form of government, really, that we have. Right. Yep. So people are fed up about COVID and government orders and, whatever, they've been cooped up. I think social media had a lot to do with it. And I think that there was a mix during those riots and marches and things. There was a mix of the sort of grassroots folks who didn't want to fight. They just wanted change or whatever. But I think there were a lot of professional agitators that came in from out of state, things like that. And I think those folks really took advantage. Probably not just in New York, but all over, But there was also, I don't want to get too much into it, but I did see in my time at the end, like, there were a lot of lawsuits over, the arrest made and things like that. And there was intel and stuff that showed that, like some of the looting, for instance, were organized crews, mm-hmm. That had nothing to do with the protest.
Yeah.
There were plenty of protesters or just, thugs doing their thing too. But there were organized crews that took advantage of the situation as well. Right. And that always happens. I mean, even natural disasters, it's the same mm-hmm.
the same crew that's doing the looting during the riot, the same crew that's going to be doing the looting during a hurricane.
So I think it was a real combination of things, but I don't know if it was also some of the local politics where some folks really felt like they were gaining steam. And it most certainly was also that folks figured nothing was going to happen to them because that's the way it was going.
Yeah.
There was really no consequences anymore for a lot of things. So that's not a good combo.
So now you had been working a few nights in a row, just like we all were, probably not going home. I know Joe just said he didn't go home for almost 3 weeks. Same thing was going on with myself. And I remember being on the George Washington Bridge at one point with, I don't know how I ended up there, but I was there. And, we were mixed up with a bunch of guys from Port Authority, and we were not going to let, the protesters take the bridge. And these guys had pitchforks, no joke. These protesters were walking around with pitchforks, and they had torches. Actual torches on fire. There's a photo that has been going around. Hasn't in a while, but at the time of these guys with literally, it was like out of a movie. It was crazy. It was craziness, and there was like no rules, and you were just doing whatever you could do to survive, essentially. I want to talk about the actual night that you got injured, and this photo just goes everywhere, both good and bad. Walk us through that day. Tell us exactly how everything went down.
So it was actually the first major night. I think it was Friday night. I think Thursday night there was a little activity, but Friday was the first big night. And, most New York City cops know the legal bureau sends out lawyers to the protest to sort of help out. And we had several teams out because there were a lot of planned different marches in different places. And a couple of our teams went to the Barclays Center. And there was a big crowd at in front of Barclays. And we had barriers. We barriered off the entrance to the arena. And they were chanting, marching. And like I said before, they never really used to attack the cops. We never really needed riot helmets that often, at a lot of these things. So most of us didn't have them. They might have been in the car or whatever, but so I was out as an attorney, so I had on like the legal bureau polo shirt, not slightly different uniform. And we were at the Barclays, and all of a sudden they start throwing water bottles, plastic water bottles, and the cops are kind of just ducking them, dodging them, swatting them out of the air. And then all of a sudden, a glass bottle or two comes in, a little later. Then a bucket of paint, and then there's like scrimmage line, scrums over the barriers. They're trying to pull the barriers. We're trying to pull them back. So, we were doing our thing. I'm sorry.
All right.
We were doing our thing, counseling the commanders on the scene, and also swatting water bottles out of the air or whatever. But it got pretty bad. And we made a handful of arrests, but not much. And eventually the crowd started to break off into different directions. And, the department did what it could to try to follow them. It was a disorganized thing, not on the department side, but they broke off into numerous splinter groups with no plans. So we did our best to follow them. And I headed to the car with one of my cops, and we heard them calling for help at the 88. And the radio chatter was unbelievable. I don't remember the exact words, but the cops at the 88 were basically saying they're going to take the command.
Yeah, I remember listening. I was working that night too. I remember hearing it. It was crazy.
And we'd never heard anything.
That was wild.
So we were trying to get there. The traffic was a mess. When we were about 8 blocks away, we had an unmarked car. So we thought, all right, let's park this on a quiet side street over here. And let's run in because the traffic's going nowhere. So we started doing that. But on the way in, we were met by numerous small groups that, were causing problems. There was a crowd moving garbage into the street to make it so the cops couldn't get there. We started trying to clear that. And then they started throwing things at us. There was a marked car there, so we jumped in their car, and we eventually were able to get out of there. When we got to the 88, enough cops had gotten there that, they didn't take the command, but they destroyed about every RMP parked in front of the 88 and other cars. I think I saw a garbage can fire or two. But the cops had formed the line and began pushing them down the street. So we got in behind the line and were helping. And when they got to the next, it was a long block. I don't remember all the names of the streets. But when we got to the next intersection, they went, the protesters or rioters or whatever went to the other side of the street and formed a line. And we all formed a line on this side. And it felt like Braveheart.
Yeah.
You had two, like
good Mexican
warring tribes
standoff.
facing each other.
Yeah.
And we gave them some space and they stood there and chanted for a while. For 3 or 4 minutes, they were just chanting. We let them chant. Then they started again with like the plastic water bottles, but then it was glass water bottles. We started taking injuries, right? An inspector was hit in the face with a glass bottle and a tooth went flying out and stuff like that. And they started a little fire off to the left. So as paint and glass bottles started to come in, one of the commanders on the scene said, all right, we're going to have to take this line. So the cops started to move forward to start making arrests and things. And the second we started to move, or the line of cops started to move, they threw everything they had at the cops. Someone rolled a garbage can toward us, but bricks and bottles and everything just at once just started flying at us. So I was looking straight ahead, and out of the corner of my eye, I saw like a brick sort of, and it was hurtling this way, right? And it just caught me right in the face. It was thrown pretty hard. So, I was bleeding pretty heavily. I looked down and blood was pouring all over my shirt. And then sort of the adrenaline, I actually charged forward with the cops at first. And I went forward and I want to say I went like a quarter of the block with them. But I looked down and I was putting my shirt up and holding it. And it was not stopping. Like, and the teeth didn't feel right. And I went, all right, yeah, I think I probably got to go get this checked out. So I got a ride back to the 8-8, went in an ambulance to the hospital. And I ended up needing 2 teeth, three teeth needed some serious work. One was gone. The other 2 were hanging by a thread. So in the emergency room, they basically splinted my teeth. And I had to get a bunch of stitches above and below. It was a pretty nasty line. On my department cell phone, I had 2 text groups going, like all the legal bureau attorneys that were working. We're talking like, okay, well, I'm going here. What's going on there? So I wrote to them and I said, hey guys, I've been injured. I'm heading to Jamaica Hospital. So I'm out. I got split from my driver. Can anyone meet me over there or whatever? Right. And they said like what happened or whatever, but I was bleeding all over my phone. So I held the phone up. I took an injury selfie and I sent it to them. And it privately sort of went viral. Like all of a sudden my phone was going, hey, are you okay? Like what happened? And you know how cops talk, they worry about each other. So I couldn't keep up. I couldn't hear the button. Then my personal phone started ringing and dude, what happened? So I couldn't keep up and I thought I'm bleeding all over both phones. So I posted the picture to one of my social media accounts because it's locked down and most of my friends are cops or high school buddies or whatever. So I said, hey guys, I got injured. You're all writing to me. I appreciate it. I can't use my phones. I can't keep up. I'm headed to the hospital. I'll be fine. Someone, whatever I wrote, someone took that post who I'm friends with because it's locked out for the public and gave it to the newspapers. Right. And then so it made like the digital newspapers. Mm-hmm. And so my name was attached to it. So there's a picture of me injured, but then my name's attached to it. So it goes viral on social media. It's got my name on it. And people start like, we'll finish that with a bullet.
Wow.
And stuff like that. So I think Intel had a threat case on it that, it was mostly social media chat, nobody really like came to the house, nobody,
right.
Whatever, but you had to be concerned for it. Mm. So, that was a little unnerving and a little annoying. And from there, no major problems for me personally. I had to get extensive dental work done though. I had an implant for the tooth that was gone, put in for the tooth that was gone. The 2 teeth around it needed extensive work. But then after that initial work was done, and it took probably 8 months, 10 months. When that was done, the trauma caused other things to shift. I needed another implant on the bottom side and some other work, so it was extensive work, but the department took care of it. Some great dentists helped me out. So I appreciate that. There were a lot of great people who reached out and stuff like that. But because we're cops and we have black humor, right? Like, I'll get to the funny side of it. It was the first night of the riots. So while you guys were killing it on the overtime, I got nothing. I got no overtime like everybody else did. Because I was home recovering for like 4 weeks. When I came back, I guess like after like say 4 weeks or whatever it was, I did go back out a little bit and got a little bit of the tail end. But yeah, like I wasn't able to crush it like you guys did.
Well, 4 weeks is actually not a long time at all to be out, especially with such a significant injury.
Yeah.
I mean, if that brick was 5 inches, I'm sure you probably thought about this a lot. If that brick was 5 inches, further up and it hit you in the skull, I mean, it could have been a serious brain injury. Or may not even be here right now.
Right.
Did they ever catch the person who threw it?
No. There was a video of the scene, but it was really far back, like a building security camera. Social media didn't really reveal anything.
Yeah.
So it was a huge crowd in the dark. It was nighttime. I don't know how I mean, the department was busy at the time, dealing with fires all over and cops having gasoline bombs thrown at them.
Right.
So I was okay. You know what I mean? Like it sucked, but was all right. So
I remember getting that photo that night. It made it, like you said, it went viral very quickly. And in one of the groups that I'm in, and someone was like, yo, there's a lieutenant, he got really hurt. And there was your photo and your shirt was off, but you have your white vest.
Yeah.
And it was red and pink, right? Because it had mixed with the white dye.
Yep.
And I was like, holy shit, that's Rob. I remember texting you later that night. I was like, dude, are you all right? And I didn't hear from you probably for a few days later because, like you said, you were.
Yeah, it was a mess.
I didn't know. You were bleeding all over your phones. You couldn't even answer.
Yeah.
But I just remember seeing that photo and your mouth was completely split open. And I was like, holy shit.
The frustrating thing was that at the hospital, and ultimately they did a great job, but they couldn't get to me to actually stitch it for like 2.5 hours. And it just kept bleeding. Like I must have gone through like 7 rolls of paper towels and I just had to keep holding it.
Yeah.
I'd take it away for a second. It'd be soaked, so that was a pain, but we got through it.
One of the things that we focus on in the muscle room after any type of traumatic incident, which that certainly is, any mental health implications after, dealing with these types of riots and getting hit in the face with a brick? Do you have any type of PTSD? Did you have any trouble sleeping the nights, following, anything along those lines?
I had some trouble sleeping because of the pain, like it hurt.
Yeah.
For sure. And believe it or not, no, I mean, I don't think I had any PTSD. But I did have, believe it or not, a little stress over because it was a Friday night. So then dentists aren't open, right? Saturday and Sunday. And I had this like splint, a dental splint, which was like wire around the good teeth holding the bad teeth. And I mean, they were wiggling. And I was a little stressed, kind of thinking like, I have to wait till Monday to go figure out what to do with this. Like, this feels bad,
Yeah. Yeah.
But Dr. Nelson Perez, who is NYPD's dental surgeon and who was close with Espo, through people we knew or whatever, reached out and said, hey, I will come into my office Saturday if you want to come in. And that felt fantastic. I drove to his office so he could take a look. He was great. So once that happened, I felt a lot better because I wasn't sure, it's a line of duty injury, but it's dental work. I don't know, what do I need a plastic surgeon? Things like that. So, and I did go see a plastic surgeon who was either a department surgeon or an honorary surgeon, also a great guy that took a look, because they, like you said, my face was split open. And so they did a really good job at the hospital, sewing it up. There's a scar, but you got to look for it.
Yeah, I'm looking at it now. It almost blends in with the crease of your smile.
Yeah, it's right along.
Yeah.
Like it kind of went like this or whatever. So it's there, but you don't see it
right
easily. So thank God for that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
but yeah, that was really like the initial stress was like, what am I doing for this?
Were you receiving, because your name was attached to it this time, were you receiving phone calls from news outlets, or was that handled?
There was
by the department?
one. It wasn't really handled per se. I mean, it was out there,
Mhm.
and I think I don't remember who. One of the newspapers reached out. I forwarded their info to DCPI, but there was so much going on. It was old news in a day.
Yeah, it's true. That is true.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
nothing came up after that.
Right. So you go through this crazy, almost once in a lifetime incident, right? Where, again, the world's on fire for almost a good year. And then eventually, 2021 starts to kind of, slowly die out. And then now here we are where it's the pendulum finally is starting to swing back in the realm of supporting law enforcement. I think we could easily stand here all night and say, we told you so, right? I think we all did that. Whether you were a rookie cop or you've been on the job for 25 years and you have a law degree, everybody saw the writing on the wall that this was not going to turn out the way they thought it was. No matter how much you wanted to fund the police, no matter how much you want to pretend that you can create a utopian society, it ain't going to happen. We just don't live in that type of world, right? And now here we are, with the defund the police movement that took over right afterwards, or essentially helped, fuel the flames.
Mm-hmm.
And the same exact politicians who were screaming defund the police are now saying we need to fund the police. And they actually just recently are in the process of passing a bill through Congress that's supposedly going to give more funding to police. I'm sure there's plenty of things attached to it that we don't know about. But again, we don't want to get too much into it because we're not, a political podcast. But you go through this crazy fucking incident. You make it 25 years on the job. You have this, a law degree. You have your own law firm, and you retire. And you're like, all right, I'm done. Nope, you're not. You decide to move out here to Claremont, Florida, which again is right down the block from Orlando. Has about, you said about 85, 95 officers. Is that where we're at?
Claremont PD.
Claremont PD. And you talked to the chief, who's also previous NYPD for, you said, about 7 years. And you, I can only picture in my head, you go up to this guy and go, hey, you know what? Fuck it. The 25 years in the NYPD, got smashed in the face of the brick. Let's do it all over again. And now this coming Monday, you're getting sworn in as a police officer for Claremont PD. Is that correct?
The part that I'm getting sworn in and about, yes, the conversation with the chief didn't go quite like
No, I completely made all that up.
I know.
But why? Because there's plenty of cops that are going to be watching right now and listening. Now, there's two sides of this, right? One, for those who have a short period of time on the job who are looking to get out. For you, yeah, do whatever you guys want to do. But for the ones who have 20 plus years on there, they're probably all saying, this guy's a psychotic.
Yeah, that's all right. I loved my time, despite all the, city nonsense or politics or whatever. I loved my time as a cop in New York. And I liked coming to work still, and I like being a cop and being able to try to help people. I could just do the lawyer thing, but I guess I don't enjoy it as much. So, the thing is, there's a lot more support for law enforcement here in Florida. Mm-hmm. The departments support their cops. The communities support their cops. And nearly every department in Florida is hiring. They don't have enough people, which is great for me and guys who want to come down. Mm-hmm. And it's a really friendly process. It's a really friendly transition. The departments are almost all universally willing to help you work out coming down and taking the medical and all these things. And ultimately, you don't have to go through an academy again. You take something called the equivalency of training course. And there's even different ways you can take it. You can apply to departments and they can sponsor you and put you through the equivalency of training course. Or you can even just go to make a long story short, pretty much every county in Florida has a police academy. And they're typically sponsored through like a community college. And so you can actually go and pay yourself like a tuition and take the equivalency of training course and then be a free agent and just go to different departments. And you can do it while you're still in New York. I actually did it in 2004. I thought about leaving NYPD and coming to Florida. I just didn't. But I came down. I paid for the equivalency of training course. I took it. I just didn't apply anywhere or go anywhere. And then I stayed with NYPD. And then decided like, okay, it's time to go to Florida, better weather. And our money goes way further down here. There's just better policies. They're really friendly toward law enforcement here. So people could say you're crazy doing that again, but it's a different world.
Right.
I live a couple of miles from the police station, whereas I commuted 3 hours a day from Suffolk County to Lower Manhattan. It's a different world, and
can you picture, I mean, clearly you can, but picturing yourself again, after doing 25 years in New York City to now coming here and putting handcuffs on somebody as a rookie officer, can like a guy who say is 28 years old, has maybe 4 years on with Claremont saying, hey, rookie, you're taking this arrest.
I suspect, it's solo RMPs here, right? And stuff like that. I suspect that the guys handle their own things, I'll find out.
Yeah.
But I look forward to learning a different way. One of the things you guys will know, and a lot of listeners will know, that NYPD makes amazing specialists, right? But our average cops on patrol are generalists and don't have to do a lot of things themselves, right? If you have a DWI collar, highway comes and does that, right? You need to kick in a door, ESU comes and does that. But most police departments in the country, you have to really train and do everything yourself.
Yeah.
And I look forward to learning that way.
Yeah, I'll agree with you on that.
Guys,
yeah.
And there's plenty I don't know. And don't forget that, I haven't been on the street in a while. And so a lot's changed. I've never used a body cam yet.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So there's a lot of things that'll be new to me.
Yeah.
And I look forward to learning from these guys.
What did your wife say when you told her?
Just going to ask that question.
Hey, hon, I think I'm going to become a cop again after retiring just a couple weeks ago.
Well, my wife was a cop, and she got injured off the job and got surveyed out. So she knows the police world, and she didn't really care, because she got surveyed out before hitting 20. Her pension wasn't the best, so somebody's got to work. My side law practice is very small because I was always busy with NYPD, and so I do my work with the law practice, and I'll take the Florida bar, and maybe I'll do some law work down here. But before I was a cop, I was actually a DJ, and one of the things about that world and kind of running your own business and things, is, do you have work or don't you? And I don't really love that unknown or that stress, right? Like if you're a lawyer on the side, a lot of people think, oh, lawyer, you can make a ton of money. Well, you could, but if you're doing it on your own, it's like any other business. You either have clients or you don't.
Right.
And if you don't, you don't. Right. So, I don't know a lot of people down here I'd have to advertise and like I said, I still love law enforcement. So
for the guys and gals that are looking to leave, not just the NYPD, right, all the major cities across the U.S., you don't have to go through the step-by-step process, but where do they start? If they're looking to go to any department in Florida, where do they at least begin?
The first thing I would try to figure out is what region of Florida do you want to go to? You want to go to Southeast, Central, North? I think the best thing to do is figure out where you want to be. If you don't know a lot about Florida, start doing the research, ask friends, things like that. I think once you sort of figure out what region you want to go to, like for me, it was Central Florida, then you start looking around at, well, where would I want to live? You know what I mean? What kind of general area do I, and then once you figure that out, well, what departments are down there? You could go another way and say, well, who wants to hire me? And that's where I'll go. Almost every department down here and every sheriff's office is hiring. And like I said, there's really two ways to go about it. You can come down while you're still in New York, take that equivalency of training course anywhere down here where it's being given, take the course and be done with it, and then be a free agent and just start talking to police departments.
This is kind of like, I used this reference the other day. This is almost like the gold rush for law enforcement.
This is the most amazing time to do this.
Yeah. You
have a very pro law enforcement governor in Florida. There's all kinds of signing bonuses. You probably saw the news. He signed a bill, $5,000 for out-of-state cops
and
to come down.
Some departments are even adding to that.
Yes.
So it's even way more than I've seen upwards of 20,000 just for a sign-on bonus.
Yeah, I didn't really, like I said, I didn't really look around a lot. I live here. I'd rather learn this community and whatever.
Beautiful community, by the way. When Joe and I were driving through, and there's a lot of new developments going up all around us, and I was like, wow, this is really nice.
Yeah, it's an expanding place. There's a really bright future for it. And I did go and visit the police station, and it's a nice facility, and I met a couple of great people there, and so I look forward to it.
I heard that if you're a cop in Florida, you get 2 free Mickey passes and to Universal. Is that true?
I have not heard that. I don't know. I'll have to look into it.
All right.
But it's from what we're used to in New York. I mean, you don't pretty much every department down here, the cops get take home cars pretty universally. You don't pay for anything, like anything.
Yeah.
We're used to that uniform allowance that doesn't help. Right. And you have to pay for everything yourself.
Right.
When you come in here, it's okay. What size pants are you? And then they hand you everything. You don't pay for anything. And for the guys, I will say, you're not going to make here what you made in New York. So, but don't get sticker shock at the prices. Southeast Florida, they pay more, but it's also more expensive to live there. In Central Florida, they pay less, but the cost of living here is less. Your money goes a lot further down here.
Right.
Remember, there's no state or city tax coming out of your check. So your take home's more, and you don't pay for any gear. You get a take home car. So you're not using your gas or tolls to get to the station, and work. It's 12-hour tours almost universally here. So less appearances per month. I hear there's plenty of off-duty gigs for guys who want to make extra money. So, there's sort of something for everyone here. You can go to a small place where you're not busy, or you can go to a busy place.
Now's the time to do it for all of you that are looking to come to Florida or any of the states that are hurting for law enforcement, which is essentially across the board. Yeah. Be smart about it. Do your due diligence, do your research, and see where you may end up. Coming close to the end of the podcast, I forgot to prep you for this prior, so if you don't have what I'm about to ask for, no big deal. We'll edit this out. If not, we'll keep rolling with this. So since the beginning of the first season, we've spoken to all of our guests, and we've asked if they have brought something with them that is sentimental to them, that they're willing to donate to the to the podcast, where it will allow us in due time to create a living museum where all of our guests, because hopefully we're going to build a studio somewhere, maybe in New York City. And we're going to have this living museum where all of our guests can come in and just kind of browse and see what all these different trinkets are, patches, coins, hats, jackets, whatever. And each of those things has a story behind it. And we could actually tell them every single story, or they could essentially listen to it themselves. Because they can listen to the podcast. Because we know they listen to all of our podcasts, all of our episodes. So do you have something that you want to share with us?
I absolutely have something to give you that I think you'll like.
All right.
Can I go grab it quick? Can we edit in a quick pause?
Yeah. Commercial break.
And it's like we never left.
Thanks to our sponsors for the commercial break, which we don't have. We appreciate you. All right. So Rob, we're back.
So I have 2 things for you. For one, because you mentioned it, you brought it up, and you asked.
Yeah. Oh, no way. That's awesome. We get to actually put this. Can you sign this for us?
That is awesome.
So you can have that for the studio wall.
Oh, that's phenomenal.
Right. And then,
so wait. So for those who aren't watching on YouTube, let's describe what this is.
Yeah. So this is the picture that you brought up before from May Day during Occupy Wall Street, where I have like this swing where I'm swinging my stick at a combatant.
Yeah. And you hit the gym after this. You lost a few pounds after this.
That's a vest. There's a vest under that shirt.
Yeah, no, but you can tell you definitely lost some weight after this photo. But again, this is so many years ago. This is not just a photo. This is not a photo frame. This is a gigantic photo that we're going to be putting on the wall.
Looks good on the wall.
It looks great. No, this is phenomenal. Like I'm going to have you sign this. Actually, that's very funny. That's a great thing to add to the museum.
Before we get the studio, Austin's putting that in his bedroom.
I'm gonna sleep this tonight in the hotel room.
And then I also have the guys at the Brotherhood were very gracious and had this coin made when I retired. So I'm sure you're going to have a big challenge coin case.
We certainly do. We will. Yes.
So that is a coin that sort of commemorated my 25 years in the PD. It's an awesome piece. There's not many of them. So take that as well.
I've actually seen this coin, a photo of this coin circulating on Facebook and some of those challenge coin groups that I'm in, because so many people have been talking about this coin. I mean, the detail.
Yeah, it's cool.
It's going to be so hard to see it on camera.
I'll post up close photos of it on the website.
For those of you that are into challenge coins, and probably many of you are who are listening to the podcast, take a look. Go to our website and take a look at this photo because it is extremely detailed. And for those of you who are not able to see it via YouTube, on one side it looks like a DJ. What would you call this?
It's it's a digital DJ deck, and they put the lieutenant shield as sort of the turntable.
Right. So it looks like, yeah. Okay. And then on the back side,
they did like a wall of speakers, and they put the commands I worked in each one, and my name and 25 years. And
yeah, this is one of the most detailed coins I've ever seen.
Yeah. That's Damien over at Empire Coin does great work.
So shout out to Damien from Empire Coins. They also hook us up with our challenge coin with Law Enforcement Officers Weekend. And this is phenomenal. So, if you guys have to make challenge coins for your department or your whatever, hit up Empire Challenge Coins on social media. They do phenomenal work, and I mean this is fantastic.
When you retire from this next department, they're going to have a hard act to follow to this coin.
Yeah.
Well, I doubt I have another 25 years in me.
You never know.
But I'll hopefully be there for a while.
So I just saw on Detroit PD's Twitter account, they just had a sergeant retire from their crime scene unit with 52 years.
Wow.
52 years.
That'll be you.
Well, a lot of New York has the age ceiling where you have to leave, and the most guys can do is like 40 years for us, right, in New York. But a lot of other places don't have that, so people stick around.
Yeah. So I got one last question for you before we end. Retired as a lieutenant, a pretty great rank in the NYPD. Are you aware of any higher ranking officers from either in the NYPD or maybe any other department that have left their department, retired, and started all over again, started fresh?
Geez. I know guys that were like homicide detectives and who came down and were cops again.
Right.
But then they went back into detective units after a short time.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. And I could have sort of waited or shopped around. There are agencies down here who will pick you up at rank, and then could be a higher rank. I mean, there are smaller departments. I could have waited to try to, get hired as a captain or a chief somewhere. But I don't think, and I could equate it for our New York guys. If you're a cop in Manhattan South and you get promoted and go to the Bronx, it's a different world, right?
Sure.
And even the arrest process, the DA's office, it's different. So, so you're a new sergeant in the Bronx, and you're supposed to supervise cops with collars, and you really have no idea what they're even supposed to do, right? And it's a learning curve. I kind of feel that way here, but it's really amplified, right? Like the law is very different, procedures are different, and so I don't think it would have been wise to wait and try to become a captain somewhere or whatever. And when I kind of feel like it's important to be out there as a cop. And if I move up, great. If I don't, whatever. I like doing the job. So
no, it's great. It just still boggles my mind that it's just it's awesome though. I mean, it shows that you truly are a public servant. You love doing what you do. You love being out there helping and being a cop, right? Because that's what it boils down to. No matter what your rank is, at the end of the day, you're still a police officer,
right?
No matter if you're a captain, a chief, whatever, you have a gun, you have a shield, you help people.
Yep.
That's what we do as cops. So Rob, thank you so much for coming on the muster room. We truly appreciate it.
It's
now.
Thanks for coming.
It's past midnight. We're now into the next day. This is for sure the latest episode we've ever done. And thank you for inviting us into your beautiful home, your new home. And we're happy to help you christen it with the first ever podcast to be shot in your home as well.
For sure.
And if anyone listening wants to look into hiring you for your law practice, where can they find you?
So I'm an attorney still in New York. I kept my New York practice. I'll take the bar in Florida, but I'm not doing anything in Florida yet. And my website is robcorbettlaw.com. Corbett is Corbett. And you could send me an email from there too if anyone wants to get in touch.
Okay. All right. Well, again, Rob, truly, truly appreciate it. Thanks for coming on.
Of course.
And Joe, take it away.